New Orleans, a city shrouded in shadow and secrets, a place where the veil between life and death thinned. Marcus Boudreau, a man consumed by ambition, he craved power, the kind that commanded respect, that bent others to his will. The death of James Leblanc, his rival, had left a void Marcus sought to fill, even if it meant dancing with the devil. Desperation gnawed at him. He needed an edge, something to shift the balance of power. His search led him to the legend of Madame Delphine, a voodoo queen whispered to have dominion over life and death. They said she resided in the heart of the French Quarter, in an apothecary untouched by time. Marcus, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation, stepped into the unknown. The air hung heavy with the scent of herbs, incense, and something ancient. The apothecary was a labyrinth of shelves, stacked with jars filled with bizarre ingredients, dried herbs, bones, strange powders, each whispering tales of forgotten magic. Shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, making the artifact seem to writhe and pulsate. From the darkness emerged a figure, Madame Delphine. Her eyes, ancient and knowing, seemed to pierce through Marcus, reading his soul. She moved with a grace that belied her age. Her voice, a low melodic rasp, sent shivers down his spine. "You seek power," she stated, her words not a question but a confirmation. "But be warned, monsieur, power comes with a price few are willing to pay." Marcus, emboldened by desperation, met her gaze. "I am willing to pay any price," he declared, his voice trembling slightly. "I want to raise James Leblanc. I want him bound to me, to do my bidding." A flicker of something cold and reptilian flashed in Madame Delphine's eyes. "The dead do not return willingly," she warned, her voice barely a whisper. "And they are forever changed by the experience." She outlined the ritual, each word sending chills down Marcus's spine. He would need to procure specific artifacts, a lock of James's hair, dirt from his grave, and a blood sacrifice. The final ingredient, the most dangerous of all, was a talisman of binding, a grotesque charm crafted from bone and blood. The price for Madame Delphine's assistance? His loyalty and a single favor to be named at a time of her choosing. It seemed a small price to pay for the power he craved. Blinded by ambition, he agreed. The first two tasks were simple, fueled by his grim determination. The lock of hair, kept as a memento mori, felt cold and lifeless in his hand. The dirt, freshly dug from James's grave under the cloak of night, carried the metallic scent of death. The blood sacrifice, however, was a line he was hesitant to cross, yet, as the days passed, his ambition festered, whispering justifications in his ear. He rationalized it as a necessary evil. A stray dog, lured into an alley with the promise of food, became his unwilling offering. The act, committed under the sickly glow of a street lamp, filled him with a chilling emptiness. He returned to Madame Delphine, his hands stained with blood and his soul heavy with guilt. The night of the ritual arrived, cloaked in an oppressive humidity that clung to New Orleans like a shroud. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a fitting soundtrack to the night's macabre proceedings. Armed with the talisman, a grotesque object that pulsed with a faint internal light, and the other artifacts, Marcus followed Madame Delphine to the graveyard. The air grew colder as they approached James's grave. The scent of decay intensified, mixing with the sweet, cloying aroma of lilies placed there by mourning relatives. The wind howled through the cypress trees, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to caress the tombstones. Fear, cold and sharp, clawed at Marcus's throat. But he pushed it down, his desire for power a stronger force. Madame Delphine, her voice a low thrum in the darkness, began the ritual. The air crackled with unseen energy. She chanted in a language both ancient and terrible, the words seeming to claw their way out of the earth itself. The talisman pulsed brightly, casting grotesque shadows that danced and writhed around them. The ground beneath them vibrated, the tremor growing stronger with each passing moment. Then, With a deafening crack, James Leblanc's grave erupted. A figure shrouded in grave dirt and cobwebs rose from the disturbed earth. Its eyes glowed with an unholy light, its skin pallid and decayed. The stench of death, overpowering and putrid, filled the air. James Leblanc, or rather the mockery of the man he once was, had returned. A triumphant grin spread across Marcus's face. He had done it. He had defied death itself. But his triumph was short-lived. The resurrected James Leblanc turned, its gaze fixing on Marcus. The glow in its eyes intensified, burning with a hatred that transcended the grave. The talisman, once pulsing with power, suddenly shattered, the bone fragments crumbling into dust. "You," James's voice, a guttural rasp, dripped with malice. "You broke the pact. You sought to control that which cannot be controlled." Panic seized Marcus. This was not the power he had craved. He had unleashed something monstrous, something fueled by rage and a thirst for vengeance. He stumbled back, fear finally eclipsing his ambition. "Madame Delphine," he cried out, seeking her help. But Madame Delphine simply watched, her expression unreadable. "The price, monsieur," she said, her voice devoid of sympathy. "You have paid it." The resurrected James Leblanc lunged, its decaying hands reaching for Marcus. He screamed, a primal sound of terror, as the creature's icy grip closed around his throat. The life was slowly choked out of him, his struggles growing weaker. As darkness crept in, he saw a flicker of grim satisfaction in Madame Delphine's ancient eyes. He had been a pawn in her game, a means to an end. The power he craved had come at a terrible cost, a cost he was now paying with his life. His last breath escaped in a shuddering gasp. The creature, its thirst for vengeance momentarily satiated, dropped Marcus's lifeless body to the ground. He lay there, eyes staring vacantly at the unforgiving sky, his dreams of power turning to ashes in his mouth. Madame Delphine, her task complete, turned away from the gruesome scene. The resurrected James Leblanc, bound to this world by dark magic and fueled by an insatiable rage, followed. They disappeared into the shadows of the cemetery, leaving behind no trace of their presence save for the freshly disturbed earth and the echo of Marcus's desperate cries. The next morning, the gravedigger discovered Marcus's body. His eyes were wide with terror, his face contorted in a silent scream. The authorities, attributing his death to a wild animal attack, never suspected the true nature of his demise. They buried him in an unmarked grave, just a few feet from the man whose death he had sought to exploit. In the heart of the French Quarter, amidst the vibrant life and oblivious crowds, Madame Delphine smiled. The cycle had repeated itself. Another soul had succumbed to the allure of power, only to be consumed by it. She knew that as long as desperation and ambition existed, there would always be those willing to bargain with forces beyond their comprehension. "Power," she whispered, her voice echoing through the dimly lit apothecary. "It is a double-edged sword. It can elevate and destroy, heal and corrupt. The wise wield it with caution, the foolish become its slave." And so, the tale of Marcus Boudreaux became another dark legend of New Orleans, a cautionary whisper carried on the wind, a reminder that the price of power is often far greater than what we are willing to pay. If you like this video, like it and subscribe to my channel.